Ted Lasso has just finished its second season, and one of the biggest character twists has left many fans either scratching their heads or downright angry. But as soon as I realized the character's arc was similar to another character's in Spirited Away, it all made sense for me. If you aren't caught up with Ted Lasso or haven't seen Spirited Away and would like to, I'd recommend coming back to this video. You can watch Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus and Spirited Away on HBO Max. Welcome to Geek Critique, my name is Dakota. This video is going to be absolutely obliterated by the YouTube algorithm, so if you don't mind spending a second of your time to click that like button to help our content thrive and maybe even drop a comment, I don't know, something random like all that is gold does not glitter, that'd be awesome. Thanks. On to the video. Nathan Shelley, who we'll go ahead and simply call Nate for the remainder of the video, goes down a very dark path during season 2. The once pitiable character that we all felt really bad for went from a kowtowing nobody to a successful coach. But in so doing, he became what he hated in those above his station. And that's an absolute prick. I don't know how or why I came to this conclusion, but Nate is going down the same character path that No Face did in Spirited Away. And weirdly, he's not the only character from the show that shares similarities with characters from that movie either. For those of you unfamiliar with or who don't recall the story of Spirited Away, here's a quick recap. Chihiro and her parents get lost in an abandoned amusement park, and her parents begin greedily eating food that wasn't theirs, turning into literal pigs. Chihiro finds herself stuck in this world as it becomes night, falling into the realm of the spirits, and being taken in to work at the bathhouse of the spirits in a profession she's wholly unprepared for in an effort to try and save her parents from being lost forever. She is helped along the way by a number of characters who are kind to her, but most importantly, no matter who she meets or interacts with, or how well they treat her, Chihiro is always polite, positive, and willing to help. In many ways, she embodies most of the characteristics that Ted Lasso's titular protagonist does, who finds himself spirited away to a new land, trying to figure out a way to reclaim his family, helping others figure out their own paths and livelihoods, and working a job he's had little prior experience in. He also chooses to be kind and positive to a fault. The parallels between Ted Lasso and Spirited Away are truly striking the more you compare them, and it almost feels intentional on the Ted Lasso team's part. But beyond Ted being a Chihiro type and Nate being a No-Face type, the comparisons are thin. You could make the comparison that Rebecca's original role wasn't too dissimilar from that of Yubaba's, that the early dismissal Keeley showed Ted isn't too far from Lynn's treatment of Chihiro, that a character like Kamaji, who goes unseen by most, is just as integral to the workings of the organization as Higgins is. You could say that Haku embodies several different characters, like Roy Kent at his lowest or Dr. Sharon when he's helping Chihiro. Heck, you could even make the comparison that Jamie Tart is the Stink Spirit, a character who has as much garbage as Jamie has baggage, but once the two are cleaned up, they present others with aid. In the case of Haku, the aid is medicinal. In the case of Roy, the aid is advice. But again, while the comparisons can be made, the connections are thin. Let's talk about Nate the Great, shall we? He begins his journey as the lowest man on the totem pole. He's the lowest ranking member of the AFC Richmond team, being nothing more than a kitman offering the players water, clean towels, and sports drinks. Nobody remembers his name, nobody wants to listen to him, and he goes unseen except for those that wish to belittle him. No Face is much the same. We don't know his purpose in the world of Spirited Away, but others pass him by without a second glance. Yubaba even says something to the effect that his kind aren't allowed in the bathhouse, and so he remains outdoors until someone takes notice. That someone is Chihiro, who doesn't see the dividing line between spirits allowed into the bathhouse and those not allowed in. Ted is similar in that, given he's new to the world of football, he has an open mind to suggestions, big or small, and gives Nate the chance to be something more, listening to his ideas and eventually taking him on as another coach. Chihiro has a lot on her plate, however, and her ultimate goals have nothing to do with No Face's desires. The fact that she chose to show kindness to him isn't unique to their relationship. She does kind deeds for the Soot Sprites, to Haku, to the Stink Spirit, to Zeniba, and more, but her ultimate goal of getting her parents back never falters. No Face, on the other hand, is gaining recognition within the bathhouse, while Chihiro is nowhere to be seen. He becomes greedy for recognition, for food and pampering, and for power. He has the ability to make something everyone wants, which is gold, and he allows that to push him to ever greater feats of gluttony and power. Ted Lasso is also dealing with the various troubles that come with leading a football club, and yet he somehow finds positive ways to reinforce all he meets, all while trying to reclaim his own family. He helps Nate find the footing to succeed, and succeed he does. Instead of providing gold to others, Nate provides AFC Richmond with goals, something the press and social media eat up, and allows for his self-image and worth to seemingly bloat overnight. Both Nate and No-Face fundamentally change to meet their new and rapid status growth, both physically and mentally. Nate's hair goes from black to white in the short span of Season 2 to denote his downward spiral into villainy. No-Face literally grows to new proportions to accommodate all he consumes. Nate takes his anger out on anyone who he deems beneath him, whether it be the players he coaches or the new kid in his old locker room position whom he outright bullies. No-Face demands the attention and respect of all, and ultimately has no respect for anyone who didn't treat him kindly prior to his entering the bathhouse, even going so far as to eat some of the workers there. The only person that No-Face and Nate have any real respect for are Chihiro and Ted. They require recognition from their benefactors, but both Ted and Chihiro, while grateful for the others' help, have other issues to worry about.
You made me feel like I was the most important person in the whole world. And then you abandoned me.
This perceived neglect drives the two to anger. No-Face demands to see Chihiro. Nate wishes to be the boss and begins to resent Ted for his position. It's not until the two characters actively confront the protagonists that their hostility and open antagonism becomes fully apparent. No-Face, after receiving the medicine Chihiro gives him, goes on a vicious rampage after her, spewing bile and hatred everywhere he goes. After Ted confronts Nate in an attempt to quash any ill will between the two, Nate jumps ship and begins coaching for another team, and he'll surely be a nasty foe in seasons to come. The two antagonists are remarkably similar, but from here, their paths diverge. After No-Face receives the medicine from Chihiro, he eventually calms and reverts back to his original submissive self, yet not as reliant on Chihiro's love, but finding that he can aid others in a more selfless manner. Nate, upon confronting Ted, receives Ted's truth, but doesn't let it set him free. He's still angry at the perceived injustice. He leaves the organization and goes to another club where he can finally be the one at the top as he's so desired. He will eventually come around, however, but it will be a painful experience for him. Like No-Face, he will likely have to lose everything that made him into who he was before he can revert back to the Nate that we rooted for. I believe in Ted Lasso Season 3 we'll see some initial success from Nate at his new club, but will eventually be thwarted by the better management style of Ted, who fundamentally believes in the people he coaches, while Nate feels very little for those he stands above. Nate will be abandoned, and Ted will forgive him, but perhaps not include him in his Diamond Dog inner circle again. I hope you've enjoyed this comparative analysis between the characters of Spirited Away and Ted Lasso, and how their character arcs reinforce each other's stories. If you did, please be sure to like this video, and don't forget to comment something down below, and subscribe if you'd like more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see another video, please be sure to check out my Star Wars Visions timeline, which I assure you will change the way you see the entirety of the show. Thank you. Have a good one.